out of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, I'm looking at the agenda, so, A is call of the application. What does that mean?
Just that you're gonna read what I said on item 1,
Okay,
and then on B, you'll just take care of the housekeeping items, which documents will be accepted in the timeframes for whoever to speak.
okay. So under new business item 1, appeal regarding corrective order and findings dated September 20th, 2021, notice of violation. The 2012 International Property Maintenance, Section 108, dangerous structure or premises, and Section 604, electrical facilities. 604-1, facilities required. Section 605, electrical equipment for the property located at 505 Brophy Avenue. Property is unsafe and unfit for human occupancy. Mr. Ward, is that the current order?
That is my current finding, that property is unsafe and unfit for human occupancy. Yeah.
Moving on to item B, housekeeping items, which documents are acceptable and the time frames.
Mhm.
Can you say that's the time frame for speaking?
Mhm.
So we have no one here.
No one here, so then
Speakers.
that we don't need to do that.
So, let's just keep this short. So the set time period 15 minutes.
Okay.
We'll stand into what they have on the street.
Okay.
And I think we can move into that now.
Oh, actually, you have to do the summarization of the issues and relevant data by the city planning staff. So that would be Joe and Mr.
Oh.
Taylor.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
So that the there's been a lot of complaints about 505 Brophy over a long period of time. Mr. Staley has brought the house into a place where I wasn't, inside the house or anything like that, but it wasn't smelling bad outside. So he cleaned it up at different times, and then he got more lax, and then I got more complaints. It never got as bad as it had been originally, which is bad enough. So the issues are that the house is unfit for habitation by anybody's standards, and that is verified by the photos that were attached, and so that's my finding. So that the house was not connected. Because one of the things we were worried about was that the house wiring was connected to the generator. The house wiring was not connected to the generator, and so that was a good thing. But the old electric service was a hazard to public safety and a public nuisance. And he did take it off prior to us getting there, and he has replaced it with a new service. I haven't gone by to see that APS connected it, but I have every reason to believe that they did. I green tagged it every week. The right now the conditions inside, I've been inside since when I was there on last Thursday, and the sanitary conditions are much better, and all the utilities are on and working right now. Well, I'm assuming that the electric.
Yes, sir.
And all the other utilities were functioning. That's the day that I green tagged the electric service. The sanitary conditions had improved vastly. The house still had a serious odor about it. There's various ways that Mr. Staley can go about tackling that issue. That I'm going to recommend that he do something beyond what he's done. The house does not meet any of the standards for habitability because it doesn't have a place to cook. It doesn't have the sinks and those kind of things that are necessary for sanitary needs. But He's making improvements. He's made vast improvements so far. He's very contrite about it.
Does it have a toilet?
What that?
Does it have a toilet?
Yes, it does. Well, even to be working there, you know, I do require a toilet. Yes, it's got a brand new toilet. And it's all-
And is the gas on?
The gas is on.
Okay, has it been pressure tested?
It has not, but he hasn't changed anything, so it's not necessary.
And I just want to reiterate that we are, and for everyone's benefit, that we are only looking at the corrective order. And that is all this is based on.
Any more questions? Okay. Item D, presentation by the appellant and witnesses. Sir.
Thank you, board members, for being here today. I've come here tonight to confirm that the system works. The system is working. The Bisbee Building Department, headed up by Mr. Ward, has gotten my undivided attention. On September 20th, I received a corrective order from Mr. Ward. He was concerned that there was not a proper supply of electricity to my home, and he wanted debris and clutter cleared from my property. I have complied to the order happily. Those things have been corrected. Early in September, I received notice from Arizona Public Service citing an outdated electrical panel that needed to be switched out with a new electrical panel. I happily agreed that that should be done. Thinking that the old box might be a hazard, I asked APS, Arizona Public Service, to remove their service until the panel was switched out. And they did that. At that point, Mr. Ward became aware that the electric service had been discontinued, and he issued the corrective order. And as I said, the new electrical panel has been installed. Mr. Ward inspected the work and gave the okay for APS to reinstate the service. The service was reestablished on October 15th. When Mr. Ward did that inspection on September 14th, I asked him to come inside my home to verify that the other utilities, gas and water, were connected and functioning. I also wanted him to see that any construction debris or trash that he was concerned about had been abated. He did come inside and looked at those things. And now at this point, I want to move forward with the updating of my 100-year-old miner's home. Many very old homes in Old Bisbee are our treasures. I have spoken extensively with Mr. Ward about this. He told me that as long as the proper permits were purchased, the renovation absolutely should continue. Mr. Ward explained to me that there are hundreds of old homes being renovated in this area, and that there is no reason my home should be looked at any differently. In my mind, a corrective order was properly issued, and I have happily complied. I have spoken to Mr. Ward about continuing the renovation, and he has agreed that I am within my rights to do so. And it is a welcome relief to be able to talk to you about this. And again, I want to thank you for your service to our city. And please consider that this is a very, very serious situation with the potential of ruining the good and kind man's few remaining years. Any decisions made in this matter should be based on reality. Internet bullying and biased opinion should not play a role. The reality is that I have responded to the order, and that has been confirmed by the city officials who issued the order. And that should be enough said. At this point, I have leased another place to live until I can get my home up to code. And as I said, I'm glad to speak with you tonight. I wish it was under better circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, moving on to item F, discussion of the issues among the board members. What I'm hearing is that there was an order issue, and Mr. Ward is saying that the appellant has made a lot of effort towards addressing the notice, but there's still some more stuff to be done, and I'm just not completely clear about that because I haven't seen this, the residents myself. Is there any
Sounds like
things that you want to talk about?
Sounds like he's pretty much addressed the electrical issue. Is that right, Joe?
He addressed the electric service, yeah.
So it's more sanitary, able to have the same certain things that would require capital.
You look at the second paragraph on page 2 of the corrective order. It says there bottom, homeless group needs the minimum safety and sanitation standards found in that 2012 ABPMC. So there's a lot more that potentially has to be, but in time he will. I have a reason to believe. But this is broader than
This is electric.
it's just the electric panel.
Right, right.
And Mr. Staley is willing to do it. Yeah.
And can I just get back into the electrical and ask, I know you put a new panel in, but is the rest of the wiring up to code, or is there still work that needs to be done there?
He intends to rewire the house, and I concur that the house should be rewired.
Okay. So that's in progress, and then we're really just dealing with, because he doesn't have to do a pressure test or water on. So he really just needs to deal with the sanitation issue of the house and.
The sanitation issue, if you saw in the photographs that were sent to you guys, there's the porch is wide open and there's a door laying across the framing members. That is one of the things I would like to be addressed first, that if there be a safety egress in and out of the house. It's going to be something before we get too far into the house, you have to be able to get into it.
Okay.
And I'd like him to address that. He and I discussed, he knows he has to do it. And then on the inside, I would like to, I know that time is going to help a lot with that.
And then that odor reader product that you can buy, it's like $60 a gallon. Talking about that,
Yeah, there's a lot of good ways to,
repetitive bleaching.
there's a lot of good ways to take care of that. I'm not going to get into which ones I require because I really require the abatement of the sanitary conditions.
Well, I was just trying to give them some ideas, because I've actually dealt with this issue before.
Right.
Mr. Ward, you're the only one here who is familiar with that premises. In your estimation, based upon like your last visit there, in order to bring this home up, the safety and sanitation codes, what kind of time frame would you think would be appropriate?
It's going to take 6 months, I would guess, without bringing in a whole bunch of contractors right now. But what I would really like to see is that one, there's no occupancy at the house until it meets up the minimum occupancy standard. And Ron is taking care of that. He's leasing places that are. I'm sorry that. But and I agree with that. But and so then I would think that I would recommend that maybe every 30 days that there be an inspection of the premises to verify that that we're becoming, that we're making substantial progress. And we're on track to get this knocked out. And Ron wants to be back in his house. He's also motivated.
And you'd be doing the inspections and
That I
you're
would
willing
be
to do
back.
that?
What I would recommend is that every 30 days, that there be another, every month, I should say. That there should be an inspection there to verify that substantial progress is being made. And that will meet the intent. But the problem with the 7 days was the house was occupied. And it was unoccupiable by code. And that has been abated. That was the primary concern.
Also, it's my understanding that Steppa Bisbee is working with you, sir, is that correct?
Well, I have applied, but I haven't heard anything.
I see, okay.
I talked to them and they have nothing to do with this.
Understood.
They don't intend to have anything to do with this house.
And I mean, should we be asking Ron if he thinks that's a reasonable amount of time, Mr. Stanley?
Well, can I comment? Please?
Yes.
Sure.
I think you know now that I am making an effort. And in my opinion, I should be able to buy or purchase permits and do the work as each permit is completed, go to the next permit. Now, I don't know what the time limit on the permits are, but I think the time limit on the permits should be the time limit on completing the job described in the permit.
It's 1 year.
Pardon me?
1 year. Is that correct?
180 days. It
Oh,
has-
180
it has to be-
days, so
It has to be
we're-
started within 180 days, and then after it's the same way as I can keep saying.
So do you still
Substantial
think that's
progress.
reasonable?
For what?
180 days?
No. Has to be started. Has to start.
Well,
Yeah,
there's some,
but
you know,
how long is
let
the
me just
permit
tell
good
you,
for? It's a year,
Well,
right?
permit been good for years.
let me just
Several
tell you
years
what
if we-
needs to be done right away is, of course, there's things that need to be done inside the house. But what I'm more concerned about, and of course, doing things inside the house would benefit me right away. What I'm more concerned about is finishing a couple things on the outside of the house, such as there's a fence that I need to finish on the downside of the property. And also the fascia needs to be replaced. Now, those are things that I would like to do before the plumbing work is started. And I removed the shower to have that replaced. I removed the bathroom sink to replace it. I removed the kitchen sink to replace it. So those things, I think are of concern to Mr. Ward. And I plan on getting those permits to start that work right away.
You might ask a question. Did you get applications to put those fences around the house from design review board?
No.
I remember watching you build them. I just didn't know whether.
And you know, I really didn't know anything about that at the time, but I am planning to go to the board to complete that south end. So,
But I mean, I guess we're getting back to the timeline, and the timeline is obviously really open-ended, so. To say what you just said
Personally-
doesn't seem reasonable as to what we're talking. We're talking about a 6-month timeline. You're talking about as long as the permit's good for it, so I don't think anybody's gonna want to. And I'm just throwing it out there. Me, myself, I wouldn't wanna go with that. I think we need to come together on something a little bit more reasonable.
I don't think we do need a timeline. I agree with you. I think that I should be allowed, I'm not living there. Let me tell you, I'm not living there. There's no one living there. I should not be under that pressure of the timeline. I mean, there's hundreds of houses in this area that are being rehabbed without any kind of timeline or inspection or anything of that sort.
I agree.
And I don't think that I should be treated any differently.
No, the timeline was when it's brought up to code, you can move back in.
Exactly.
But Ron, those other houses don't have corrective orders either.
I'm sorry, say that.
Those other houses do not have corrective orders either. So that does change things a little bit.
Right, but still, I think that I don't think that my situation should be treated any differently than any of the hundreds of other houses that are being rehabbed.
It isn't, though.
Pardon me?
It isn't, sir.
I'm sorry.
It is not. You're not being treated any differently
Oh, okay.
than anybody else.
But I think I should be allowed to buy the permits and do the work myself as quickly as I can. And of course, there's the outside things that I don't know how you feel about that. But as far as you know, being considerate of the general public, I think that there's a couple things on the outside of the house that should be done right away or first. You know, because I hate to just say, well, you guys look at this ugly fence for a while longer. You know?
So, well, here's the next, I guess this is where this is going, because you are right, there's a lot of houses that aren't being addressed, and that's what I was bringing up earlier. But, I mean, right now, because you've created so much, you know, there's a lot of eyes on this, and people want something done about it. But if we start doing that too, then maybe you might be opening up that to make corrective orders for everybody else. I mean, is that something that you'd like to start, or?
Well, I'm really just concerned about my situation because I'm not real sure about other people's situations.
Okay.
To be exact.
I mean, because this is gonna spitball. So if you could just give a little timeline and then work towards that and then get checked up on, then maybe this won't spitball and turn into something else for other people. That's just my observation.
And that's what Mr. Warren has
But I
suggested.
think putting timelines on that is gonna ruin everything.
Here's my suggestion, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, sir.
that there is a difference between your property and all the other houses in Bisbee that are in a similar situation. And that difference is that there were some major infractions that were brought to the building inspector, or the police department, or public safety, or whoever. Now you've been served, those other houses haven't. You know, that's Joe's job, and the fire department and police department's jobs to go around and just make sure that our community as a whole is safe, and we're not presenting and causing a nuisance to the rest of the neighborhood. And the nuisance could be a fire hazard, it could be odors, it could be whatever it is. But right now you are under the microscope, and that's the difference between you and all the other houses. And I agree that when the inspector goes in and finds something wrong, and you go into a 100-year-old house, like all the 100-year-old houses in Bisbee, he's going to find, the more he looks, the more he's going to find. But I trust Mr. Ward in that he is going to require the minimum. He's not going to require everything in every code book. But what I'd like to do is make a motion that Mr. Ward provide us and you, so we have everyone's, there's no surprises, that he comes up with a complete scope of work or list of infractions, the minimum that he's going to want to see
And you know,
before you're allowed to go back and start inhabiting that structure.
and sir, I think he's already done that.
Well, I have not seen a complete list.
May I make a comment?
Yeah.
I think it should start with life and safety priority, maybe sanitary, life and safety, and eventually go to decorative and
The aesthetics of the house is irrelevant.
fences and things like
Yeah.
that. I think should be down on the list. But first, let's get the sanitary.
And you know, as far as sanitation goes, some of that is absolutely out of my control because of the feral cat problem in that area. And it's just gotten to the point where it's hard to control.
I think the feral cat problem in that area is going to be addressed by the county attorney's office. I understand that you're under consideration for prosecution. So, you know, we'll leave that to the county prosecutor. So the cats aren't there because, you know, you're just because they like you. Somebody's feeding them, somebody's attracting them. You don't get that concentration in population of cats for nothing. So
And the cats aren't in the corrective
that's
order.
not
Yeah.
or under the sports purview. But whatever's causing the problem, I think will be addressed under the county attorney's office. And then, there's a nuisance there, whether it be odor or fire hazard or weeds or overgrown or dilapidated. Those nuisances affect the neighbors in the whole neighborhood. And that's what he's looking at. That's all that we're going to be dealing with.
So can we get back to maybe if you could come up with a timeline? We're all, I think that mentioned 6 months. I want to get back to that.
I'm gonna make a motion here shortly. In fact, I think I'll just go ahead and I'd like to make a motion to direct Joe Ward to write a complete scope of work and all the infractions that he wants to see corrected before this house is allowed to be habitable. Number two, I would like him to give at minimum of 6 months to Mr. Staley. And if Mr. Staley needs more time as we progress, I don't care if it takes 10 years for you to do this, but number three, I want Mr. Ward to be able to go in and minimally every 30 days and do progress reports and inspections, make sure that you are continuing to move forward. We've seen houses in Bisbee that have come before this board or other boards, and we let them say, oh, we're going to fix up the house, and the houses, go for years, and we don't see anybody in those houses. So we want to see progress. And number four, lastly, the house is to remain uninhabited until all these items that we talked about in item one, where Joe will write in the complete scope of work, are completely addressed, and then the house can, it will give a notice or notice of occupancy. Yeah, certificate of occupancy. So that's my motion.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. And that takes us to pass C. The motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, fellas.
Good luck.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Joe.
You guys have fun.